Okay, so the other day I talked about what is a transcript, which I feel like is very important for families and scholars to understand what is a transcript, what information is on a transcript, before we start to dive into what are your graduation requirements. So today we are going to talk about graduation requirements. Because DPS has made a pretty big change for graduation requirements for scholars graduating from class of 2021 and beyond. And so we're going to talk about what the original graduation requirements are and then what the change was. The change doesn't affect the number of credits that scholars need in order to graduate, but it does add an additional criteria that students are going to have to fulfill in order to graduate. But before we do that, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So let me move this over a little bit about how DPS does their credits, because it's very different if you had a scholar that has attended Cherry Creek schools or Aurora Public Schools. The way that DPS does credits is a little different than those school districts. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit before we dive into the new stuff. So credits are a criteria used to track a scholar's progress towards graduation, and a scholar is only going to earn credits if they pass a class. So at DPS, one semester class is going to be worth 5 credits. Now here at Strive, we double block our math and our English classes. So that means that students have basically 2 periods of those classes each day that they have those classes. And this isn't a major deal. A lot of schools, the school that my daughter goes to, they have 90-minute classes, so it's almost essentially like all of her classes are double blocked. But it is important to know if your student attends Strive, if they have a double block class, they are still only earning 5 credits for that double block class. But essentially what you want to know is that each class per semester is worth 5 credits. So that's the important part. Graduation requirements. So scholars are all required to complete 240 credit hours each in order to graduate overall. So every year, the number of credits that they are going to be working towards earning to go towards that 240 credits is 60. By the end of their freshman year, they should have 60. By the end of their sophomore year, they should have 120, and so on until they get to the 240 credits. So that's important to understand as well. The areas, the subjects where the students are going to be earning those credits is going to come from specific areas. So many of those credits need to be English, so many of those credits need to be math, science, world studies, language, electives, and even the electives get broken up, so they are required to complete so many PE credits, so many art credits, and so on. So those are some specifics that I kind of go over with parents when they decide to come in. But there is a breakdown. There are 3 classes that students will take all 4 years that they're here, no matter what. And that is going to be English, requires 40 credit hours. Science is going to require 40 credit hours, and math is going to require 40 credit hours. So that's important to know as well, because if you think about it, if your child fails in English or fails a science or fails a math, it's almost going to be essential that they take that over the summer because they're already scheduled to take 4 years of that anyway. Whereas with social studies, or world studies is what we call it here, if you fail a world studies, we can always plug that in somewhere. So that's just something that I also try to make parents aware of. So let's talk then about the small change. It's not a change, I take that back. Let's talk about the small addition. So DPS is now requiring that students, in essence, prove that they are college and career ready. And there are several ways that they're looking at doing this. So all the students in Colorado take the SAT. And so one of the ways that a student can prove that they're college and career ready is by completing the SAT. However, it's not just taking the SAT. They do have to pass English and math with a minimum score. So your scholar needs to complete the SAT, and for English, they need to score 470 points. And in math, they need a score of 500 in order to fulfill that college and career ready criteria with the SAT. Say that they don't quite score that, but they also took the ACT. The ACT is another way that a student can prove they're college and career ready. In the ACT in English, they need to score at least an 18, and in math, they need to score at least a 19. Say your scholar still just didn't hit the mark, but they took advanced placement classes. Well, advanced placement classes give scholars an opportunity to take an advanced placement test at the end of the year and possibly earn college credit if they score, I think the minimum score to get the credit is 4 points. But for this criteria, a scholar only needs to score 2 for English and 2 for math in advanced placement. Now keep in mind, advanced placement tests are going to be based on the class. So maybe your child is taking advanced placement English, but they're not in advanced placement math. They can still take that test, but it won't be like an automatic part of something that they do at school. So just keep that in mind if that's something you're looking at to fulfill this requirement for your scholar. Concurrent enrollment is another opportunity that scholars can prove that they're college and career ready. And concurrent enrollment is the ability for your child to take a certain class at their school that then is going to give them college credit as well as count towards their high school requirements. And in their concurrent enrollment English, they would need a C- or better. And in math, they would need a C- or better. Again, 2 separate classes. So if that's something we're looking at to fulfill that requirement, they would need both classes. Say your child is in an IB program. So in English for IB, they need a 4 or higher. And in math in IB, they need a 4 or higher. There are some other ways. So say your student takes the ASVAB. That's the kind of the general test that students take to see where they're at to be prepared for the military. They can score a 31 on the ASVAB and fulfill this requirement. So say your scholar has done all of those things for whatever reason, that poor child, and just hasn't met the mark. Another criteria that DPS is allowing is for scholars to complete what's called a portfolio, a capstone portfolio. And it's basically through work experience that has a significant academic impact. Scholars are able to basically provide a body of work in English and math to prove that even though maybe I'm just not the best test taker, those concurrent enrollment AP classes and IB courses are very difficult. So I didn't even want to try that. But I am college and career ready, and I can show you I'm college and career ready because I've done the work. So what we're doing here at RISE is we're collecting this body of work for every single one of our students, no matter what, so that if for some reason they just didn't hit this mark, we're not trying to collect that senior year so that they can graduate. We are just going to collect that from freshman year and be collecting it throughout their 4 years with us, so that if for some reason we get here and they just have not met that mark for some particular reason, we already have that body of work. So that is the major change. What I am telling students is this is nothing that they need to worry about. We take the SAT. Most of our students take the AccuPlacer. A lot of our students are in concurrent enrollment and advanced placement courses. And I'm going to encourage all students to take the ACT. This is nothing that most students are even going to notice or feel. And since we're already collecting the capstone body of work, if for some reason they didn't hit that mark, it's not even something that the student is even going to know that this is what we had to use in order to fulfill the graduation requirements. So it was just something that I really wanted to discuss because it is a big change. And I know for the most part, as a parent myself of a junior, I'm still learning what some of the graduation requirements are for Cherry Creek schools. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity and share with parents a little inside scoop on what the DPS graduation requirements are and the changes. So we will chat again soon.